I don't think that the gyms will disappear at all. I just think they have to repurpose their way of their being and serving the customer, right? And they definitely need to embrace the technology. How they're gonna do that? That's a different question because there's just no all size fits all solution, right?
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. Today we're speaking with the founder of the FitTech Summit, the leading European conference devoted to fitness technology and the future of well-being and healthy lifestyle. They believe the traditional fitness industry needs to embrace technology or become extinct, as it's no longer relevant as it was, and a new and even bigger arena is being created that is being dominated by big tech and media giants. In the race for gym members or subscribers, many manufacturers and operators are having to reimagine their value proposition or face extinction. In this insightful talk, we discuss the purpose of gyms in the future. Is the appeal of apps now over? The next level for wearables, and the next move for connected home fitness products. So to get a glimpse into what the future may hold, please welcome Miss Natalia Karbasova to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast.
Natalia Karbasova, CEO of the FitTech Company and founder of the FitTech Summit. Welcome to the Escape Your Limits podcast.
Hey Matthew, great to be here.
So what would be useful for the people that are probably not familiar with your organization? Tell us a little bit about the FitTech Summit, FitTech Company, and your primary sort of purpose and mission.
Yeah, so that's quite a simple question. So our mission is to make humankind healthy again. And we do that not by producing fitness products, but by creating networks and creating the narratives around the future of fitness. So basically, the FitTech Summit is the leading conference in Europe, which is devoted to fitness technology and also to the future of well-being and a healthy lifestyle. And the FitTech Company, which is behind the summit, is also we're a big network, right? So we have just launched the FitTech Club, which is a high-level networking platform for founders and C-level executives in the space in Europe and soon globally as well. And the FitTech Summit is the platform where we talk through things which are accessible for everyone.
Thank you. So one of the things I'd be interested in is define tech as it relates to the, I guess, traditional fitness space that many of us and many of our listeners are probably involved in on some level.
This is the great question. Well, what we do not define as tech is things like customer relationship management platforms. So for us, this is like low-level tech, and this is something that you need to have as a player in the space, right? But tech for us is more like things that are gonna change the way we do fitness, and part of it is, of course, like connected hardware for home fitness. Part of it is AI applications, blockchain for health, which we'll be talking about at the next FitTech Summit, or probably also things like virtual reality or augmented reality, which has been used for health and fitness purposes. So basically all the cool things out there that you love to play with.
So one of the things, I was speaking to one of the gentlemen that's involved with you guys, Carl Roeder, and we had an interesting conversation yesterday. And I was preparing for this interview, and it kind of, I guess the more, I'm excited about a lot of what the things that you guys are doing, and I'm excited about where the space is going. But the more I look into it, the more confused I get, and the more blurred and fragmented the space seems to be. And he was referring to a book by a lady called Rita McGrath, who was also a guest on our podcast a while ago. And she has a book called The End of Competitive Advantage, and talking about how to look at things as in the fitness space, we generally, the definition, we call it the fitness industry. And she was saying, well, really now it's not about the industry. It's really looking at it in terms of arena. And when I had the conversation with Carl and looking at some of the things that are happening with people like Peloton, media company, Apple, Amazon, tech companies, Under Armour, apparel companies, and many more, it kind of really got me thinking, is it time for us to stop calling ourselves the fitness industry and look at things in a slightly different way? And I was just interested in your thoughts on that, Natalia.
Matthew, I think this is brilliant because this is exactly the point. I think that fitness industry as such will cease to exist in the next years. And we are not talking about the fitness industry anymore. We are talking about fitness and health-oriented industries, right? And these are all the industries that are working on the main goal to make people healthier and happier through that. And I think that the borders between the industries are blending so much that you just can't distinguish that anymore. Like you just brought the example of Peloton, right? And they define themselves as anything but a fitness company, right? So they say we're a technology company, we are a media company, we are a user engagement, whatever company, we're anything but a fitness company. And that's a great point. Because people do not distinguish that anymore. For them, fitness is just a part of life, and this is just a part of being happier and pursuing happiness. And to quote the American Constitution, every person has the right for happiness and for pursuit of happiness. And that's exactly what's happening in the health and fitness space right now.
Yeah, it certainly it certainly takes a bit to get your head around, but I agree with what you're saying. It probably, in its current form, if we do not evolve, it will definitely sort of cease to exist, or it will be on its way to sort of some level of extinction, which I think we're seeing in certain areas. I like the quote that you made. You said the gym is not a synonym for health, which was pretty interesting. So what would you say then, from your perspective, is the purpose of a traditional gym in the future?
Well, I don't know. I think we'll see different kinds of purposes of traditional gyms, and I like to describe those as jobs to be done. So what kind of functional, social, and emotional value you're bringing to your consumers, right? And for some gyms, that will be, I want to get fit in 20 minutes within 3 times a week, and that's enough for me. For some gyms, that would be, I want to be part of the community and feel included emotionally into that kind of community, right? And for other gyms, that would be something completely different. So I think we have reached a point where gyms definitely need to pay lots of attention to what kind of problems they're solving and for whom, because we'll definitely see some gyms where the segmentation of the audience is, they might be serving like needs of 3 target audiences simultaneously. And this is a great starting point to create some personalized offerings for these types of people who are really eager to pay money for that. So if you are serving the right needs of the right consumers, the willingness to pay is definitely there. And that might be way higher than you suggested in the beginning.
There's quite a bit, I guess, as a result of the Apple or the app that Apple, the health app, fitness app that Apple released, or the membership
Fitness
they released
Pass,
recently.
yeah.
Fitness Pass, yeah. Following that, I've been on many panels and listened in on many conferences, and there was suddenly this big fear within the space about Apple and a lot of talk about them. I know it was one of the subjects on your recent event, and it kind of got me thinking, well, why is there such a concern about Apple? And is it, if you're in the traditional bricks and mortar space, is there not a big difference between the physical element to that, which is what you kind of get when you're in a club, and Apple, which are not really necessarily a pure physical business model?
I think the fear is grounded for some gyms. I don't think that the gyms will disappear at all. I just think they have to repurpose their way of their being and serving the customer, right? And they definitely need to embrace the technology. How they're going to do that? That's a different question, because there's just no all size fits all solution, right? And I think the fear of Apple is there because Apple is just such an engaging company. I mean, they're a tech-driven company, they're a user-driven company. They have created to create mechanics to interact with the users and to create them to provide them with the best customer experience ever, right? And they have like lots of followers. I mean, and someone who is an Apple fan is usually quite locked up into this ecosystem. which you cannot say about gyms, right? Gyms are the products which are usually quite easily exchangeable, right? So they can be commoditized quite quickly. And we've also seen this kind of thing in the auto industry where the manufacturers have become kind of hardware extensions for the software. Okay, this is also changing right now, with Tesla being a great example and a great kick in the ass of the industry. So I think the best way to think about the business for gyms is just to ask questions like why the consumers are coming to the gym, what kind of consumers they want to serve, how they can work with big tech, and where they can leverage the advantages of the big tech companies like Apple to include that in their own offerings.
Yeah. To build on that point, I was sort of thinking when I was preparing it, is technology, or could it be overrated if you're a physical business? And one of the things that has become quite apparent when I was researching this is there's a lot of information, and maybe it's just really relative to where we are post-pandemic and the fact that people have been in solitary confinement for some time. But when you look at health, there's a ton of research out there that was done pre-pandemic in terms of the importance of connection, touch, how us as humans, even from when we're babies, it's almost the need for touch and how it affects a lot of your hormones is really, really essential. And I was just sort of wondering that, and obviously you're a tech business and you're promoting technology, but I'm just wondering, are some of these traditional businesses forgetting what this really important missing part of what they're doing, and by maybe using technology in a slightly different way to enhance the physical experience? Is that something that we should be thinking about, as opposed to saying, well, look, Apple are here, they've got all of our data, they're this big Goliath, they've got all the money, how are we going to compete with those?
Well, this is a great question. I think what you should not forget is the relationship to your customer, right? So you can be like the super tech-driven business, but if you don't care about your customers, that's pretty much it, right? On the other hand, you can also be a non-scalable fitness, physical fitness business. But if I feel great, if I come to you, this could be your unique selling proposition. This might be for me the chance just to reconnect to the guys on the spot. That would be a great chance just to feel a great member of this group of individuals, right? And I believe what physical businesses can also provide their customers with is definitely this human touch and accountability, right? If there's someone waiting for you when you are supposed to work out, people are asking like where you've been. If they do care that you show up for the training, this is a great thing to leverage, which is way more difficult to leverage just through technology.
Right. And is there, or are you seeing, in order to enhance that physical experience, are you seeing anything on the AI side, as an example, that would allow the interaction between a human being, whether that be a trainer, a front desk receptionist, or anyone really in that business? Is there ways where you can enhance that experience, make it more efficient, but also make it maybe more personal and take it to a level that you probably couldn't do without that component being attached to it?
Yeah, like I guess, first of all, customer relationships can definitely be enhanced with the help of AI. So you can just understand when is the time point when the customer will probably not come anymore. You can track engagement, you can track the customer satisfaction, which is, of course, a great support for the physical business, right? And on the other hand, on the front end side, you can also include some more engaging mechanics for the customers who are coming to your gym to interact with, right? So you can think about the virtual reality competitions right at your place. You can think of setting up, think about the Climber, the home fitness company. They also have gyms in, I guess it was in Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, which consist of pure climber machines where customers come together to work out together on these machines. Something they could have done on their own, at the comfort of their own homes, but they do come for the sense of community. So I think this sort of things are super interesting. And just to make it clear, I do not think that gym members will not come to gyms anymore. We see that already. There are numbers that I guess like around 70 to 80% of the members come back to gyms, right? The question is just what will happen in the 2, 3, 5 years when they will start thinking of investing their money in different kinds of experiences that provide their or help them to stay healthier and fitter and to have fun along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the point you made about noticing when members may stop coming. I was chatting to Ian Mullane about that recently, and some quite interesting.
Exactly. That's a perfect product. I mean, Keep Me Eye is exactly what the guys are doing, and for us, would say, okay, that's not quite fit tech, but this is definitely something that that the gyms should embrace. As you know, this is the groundwork. This is something you have to do. And on top of that, you can put an additional layer of technology, which help you to engage your customers even better.
Yeah. So if we go back to the term we were speaking about earlier, which is the arena, you at your summit, you had several manufacturers there talking about what they were doing over the recent period. And I suppose looking through some of those slides that you were very kind to send me, it kind of got me thinking, well, are the manufacturers, what's their purpose going to be in the future? Are they a partner, which is what they kind of, and I'm one of those, I guess, are they a partner where they're supporting some of those businesses, or are they actually becoming a competitor? If you look at what Technogym are doing, although they've got some interesting variations where they're collaborating with clubs, but Technogym are very much in this space. Free Motion now, with the recent acquisition by Peloton Precor. So these would be brands that would be club partners, but then also if you look at the customer, which is what you referred to earlier, they're also probably developing this relationship with the same customers and competing for a similar share of that wallet. I just wonder what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I think it's about survival of the fittest and of the companies that have the best customer relationships. For many manufacturers, B2B customers, gyms, hotel, and so on and so forth, are the main customers, right? But we also see that those B2B companies also value the direct customer relationship. And direct-to-consumer companies are those who have great valuations, who have built relationships with the people who are interested in buying their product and increasing their customer lifetime value. So I think that the value chain is shifting. And probably gyms are not the most important part of this value chain anymore, right? So now they have the chance to say, okay, we just do the things the way we used to do all this time, right? And they probably will be successful for some time, but probably also not, right? They might also think of integrating this ecosystem into their kind of, into their businesses. Like, if we think about all the devices that are out there, like think about Hero Workout. That's an Austrian startup which is developing wearables and trackers for gyms specifically, right? So the point is to provide the personal workout experience for mass market gyms, so to speak, where there's no personal training, which is included into the program. And they track in real time what you're doing and give you some feedback through audio, which is recorded by real trainers. So this is one of the examples where you can perfectly integrate gym experience, working out within a certain community with technology and becoming better as an individual, right? I think the main point for gyms is just not to be afraid of what's coming, because you cannot change that anyways. Technology is coming. And this is why we're saying at the next FitTech Summit, the motto is tech or die, because this is what's going to happen. The question is how you want to integrate the technology. And this is something you have to really give thought to, because what should not happen is just, thoughtlessly integrating anything which is shining out there on the street and then wondering why it doesn't work.
Thank you for supporting the Escape Your Limits podcast. If you're thinking about creating a unique and engaging fitness space to take your fitness to the next level, then we have you covered. Escape Fitness design and manufacture some of the most innovative, attractive, and durable functional training and free weight equipment used by many of the best trainers and fitness brands across the globe. As a valued listener, we are offering you a 10% discount off many of the products on our website. You can check out the full range by going to escapefitness.com and use the code DUMBBELL. That's escapefitness.com using the code DUMBBELL. That's it for me. Please enjoy the rest of this interview.
One of the challenges that's been with the fitness space for a long time, although I have read that Peloton seems to be doing a much better job than most, but retention, inactivity, obesity, those are sort of three things that the fitness space has been trying to solve for a long time. Can technology really solve that, or does the pharmaceutical industry stand a better chance of actually fixing that problem?
I hope not. I hope that we can fix this problem, or rather said, we can help people just become more healthy and more aware of their health through the use of technology, among other things, of course. So we're definitely witnessing the shift in the consciousness, right? The pandemic helped us to understand how important health is, right? And just to be honest, if gyms are not able to keep a huge chunk of their members long term, they have a problem as a business, and that has nothing to do with the with the overall trends, because we know that people have loss aversion. They prefer not to move too fast, and if they have started with the membership at the gym, if they're quite happy with that, they probably stay. So there have to be good reasons for them not to stay within this gym. So again, we're here discussing the topic of the customer relationships, right? And how you treat your customers. But I think, as I said, technology can definitely help in that it creates more engaging experiences, because engagement is definitely one of the most important things which is going to happen in the industry, or to be more precise, higher engagement and different ways of engaging the consumers. And the way they will be discussed, I mean, you can create some gamification mechanics. You can understand better, like how or what kinds of workouts are more engaging or interesting for your customers. You can create a better segmentation within the gym. You can ask questions, like ask a customer, why are they here, right? These are all very simple things that you can do without much investment to start with.
So just building on that question then, so would you say then some of those key challenges that have been around before could be improved by being clever about using technology as an engagement tool that is with you beyond the physical space and is sort of with you around your life, whether that's wearables, trackers, devices, information? Is that kind of, from what you're seeing, that how that circle expands in order to improve some of those problems that we've not really been successful in most cases in solving?
Matthew, I think convenience is one of the key things here, right? So users do expect great usability. They expect they can use technology or offerings everywhere, like stats right on your phone, instead of having to access the desktop app for that, right? They expect instant replies to their requests, and they expect their activities just to be meaningful, right? And this is where I was just thinking of, like, low-tech programs, like 8 weeks, and you're gonna build muscle and so on and so forth. I mean, this is always simple when you're starting with doing more fitness or being more active. The beginning is always quite simple, because regardless of what you're doing, you're gonna see the results, right? It gets more difficult in the second and third and fourth months, and this is where this topic of engagement should definitely come into place. And I was just thinking, we do need more kind of mentors for the space. We do need, and all these mentors can also be wearables. Like, I was just thinking of Whoop and the things that they have created so far. We can probably talk about that in more detail a bit later. But this is the engagement part, or the part which helps you to understand where in your health journey you are right now as an individual, and what kind of value you're getting out of being club member or subscriber to a certain health service. Do you know what I mean? Or
yeah, I absolutely. Yeah, I do. I absolutely makes sense. One of the things, I guess, that there's a lot of concern from, I've heard a lot of people worried about this, is data. I've seen, you've had a number of sort of conversations and debates on that one. And I was wondering, is it really important anymore? Because if you look at Apple and Facebook, they know everything. They know what we're going to think next, probably in most cases. And then you've got sort of Under Armour. I was reading about those. Previously one of the largest digital fitness brands at least a few years ago they were. And even if you look at what they've done, they've sort of gone from a data collection model to using AI for insights that they can give back to people. And now they've actually sort of shelved that whole, well, not all of it, but a big chunk of that. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on data. Is it something that we now should be concerned of, or do we just sort of use it as a wave that we ride and take the opportunities with what a lot of these big companies are almost serving up for us to utilize?
Look, 100%. I mean, here in Europe, we are also very concerned with data security and data protection, right? And this is definitely something we have to keep in mind all the time, because health data is one of the most valuable kinds of data that you can get out there, right? So short answer is yes. But I also think that we need to understand that without data, there's just no insight, right? I mean, this is kind of obvious. I feel ashamed of having to say that right now. But what I think that companies like Whoop are doing great is they don't just track your data, right? They help you to get more value out of that through creating insightful, I call those micro narratives, right? Things like, hey, we have noticed that after you have had a day of intermittent fasting, you have been sleeping like 20% better, right? So this is one of the examples that I love, because that's what also helps me personally to understand what kinds of behaviors are good for myself and for my health. And this is super surprising for me, but I'm really surprised why Apple is not doing something like that, because for them that should be really a no-brainer. Right. With the kind of data that they can collect and kind of user behavior tracking that they have. And here, data is valuable. It helps you to get healthier. It helps you to change your behavior. You have the transparency. They kind of explain what they measure. Although, of course, there's also no 100% transparency there. The algorithm is proprietary. We do not see the data sets behind, and so on and so forth. So this is something we have to balance out in the years to come. But I would rather say we'd rather collect more data and make sure that we store that in a secure place and we create some meaningful things out of that, as to start or to continue kind of managing your members with pen and paper, because it just doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah. I know gyms are obviously concerned about this, because previously they would be the ones that would have and own that data. And now with more things kind of going into their facilities by stealth, smartphones and smart products and wearables, it's almost like, well, hold on a minute, it's got to a stage where I guess that you have to sort of give up on controlling it, and it sort of leads me on to the smart product and wearables, because I've got a few. I've got an Oura Ring, and MyZone, and a few others, and I suppose. What's
your favorite?
I love sleep is this big thing for me now. I've talked about it on the podcast. It's almost like if my sleep was a body, I'd kind of be very overweight. I'm quite bad. But I'm trying to do everything that I can to improve it, as I came off a terrible night's sleep last night. So I've not quite cracked the code yet.
No problem. And if you were wearing a Whoop, your Whoop score might probably be like 30 or something. That helps you to understand. Okay, I'm really in a bad place right now. You still cannot do anything about that, but at least you know that.
Yeah, sometimes I take it off and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to wear it because I know it's not going to be good. But anyway, I suppose. I suppose it's kind of, well, smart products and wearables, it was something that was talked about at your event. And I was asking myself a question, well, is this for gyms? Who develops some of these smart products and owns them? Or do gyms and traditional sort of bricks and mortar businesses, is there a place for them to sort of aggregate and translate this data? Because one of the things that does confuse me when I look at I've got some pretty basic devices, but how do I pull that together? And I like to feel I'm relatively educated about the space. I speak to some of top people in the business, but I've still got a long way to go. So I can understand someone who doesn't know anything about it, and it's extremely confusing. But being able to go somewhere, not necessarily to another app, because we've all got hundreds of apps on our phone, but going to someone that can kind of say, well, look, this is what's going on, and this is how I can kind of translate some of that for you and give you some 1, 2, 3 steps of exactly what to do, whether that's eat, drink, rest, recover, blah, blah, blah. How do you see this sort of smart product data fitting in and possibly being an opportunity for bricks and mortar businesses?
Matthew, can I ask you one question before that? Because I think you know the bricks and mortar business way better than I do. So what was so far the best example for you of the data usage within gyms?
Well, I guess like a lot of business is pretty terrible. Like even basic CRM, in most cases, and understanding people and being able to connect is on a very, very low level in most cases, not all, but certainly the conversations I've had, it could do better, would be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so far for me, that's also has been the experience, although I'm not a typical gym goer, I would say. I don't know if gyms are capable of aggregating all those data. So I think the best way for them to go with would be partnerships, right? And here we have another question, because it's also not that easy to run a partnership with someone who is moving like 10 or 20 times faster than you do as a gym, right? So I just talked to the CEO of Vitruvian, which is one of the new home fitness companies, which are basically just a platform, where you can train with in terms of functional fitness. With engagement through the app, right? And I also asked him this question because I do think that there's great potential for gyms to cooperate with the FitTech companies in this space, like with home fitness companies, for example. We do know of some gyms like SATS that are bringing out their own home fitness applications, like the Miro that they've just brought out in Europe. But in general, I haven't seen much of those, or way too many of those cases, right? And you know what the CEO of Vitruvian told me? He said, yeah, we generally can partner with anyone, but the thing is, we will not, because they're moving too slow. They are not interested in understanding what kind of partnership that could really be, and they're just taking care of their old business. And here we are in this classical innovator's dilemma. Of course, you still have some margins in your old business, and you have to take care of the existing customers, and lots of them are really quite happy with what you do. So why should you do something new? And when the moment comes when you have to do something new, it's too late, right? Because there are new players who are investing into marketing budgets, who are investing in great customer retention, who just start to move up market. And when they do start to do that, right, it's too late. I can definitely imagine some gyms which will be pure hardware gyms, like a carbon trainer gyms full of mirrors, right? And they just rent the space and they just create this experience for customers, which is at the same time a showroom for their product. So why not? We'll also definitely see some joint memberships for a gym and a home fitness company, but probably this will not be in the majority, right? And we'll see some companies like Amazon probably opening up their own fitness showrooms or fitness experience hubs or whatever. I mean, if Amazon can allow itself to open up hairdressers with AI and face recognition support to show you how your hairstyle will look like after you've done that, right? Why not open up a gym? I mean, they're practically unlimited in what they can do.
That's a very interesting comment you make, and it was one that again, I'll use it again because it's fairly fresh in my mind. But with what Carl was talking about, which was rust belts into smart belts, and I said, do you see the fitness industry as kind of like potentially becoming a rust belt, meaning areas or businesses that are basically becoming extinct? And he says, well, that's what I'm seeing, and I said, well, what would cause a business to go from a rust belt to a smart belt, meaning going from almost extinction to then becoming really evolving? And he said, well, the examples of other industries where that's happened, or businesses or locations where that's happened, he said there's been this sense of urgency, and that is really what's caused people to get together, to collaborate, which he said was really a big thing, and then to evolve. But his feeling was that the space doesn't have that sense of urgency, which was interesting, because I think his view was that everyone thinks it's okay. But I do think you bring up a really good point in terms of collaboration, which is what we discussed. There's a lot of interest in collaborations, and I think sometimes we're all quite scared to collaborate with people that we think are competitors. But in terms of data and some of these sort of in-home tech companies that are out there have got some fantastic capabilities. And I suppose if there was a way of thinking a little bit bigger, then partnering together and doing things the other person couldn't do could potentially grow that space a lot greater. I guess it's just having the confidence to be able to do that. Just interesting in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Matthew, totally. I mean, to put it the German way, you have to really have some fire under your ass before you get moving, right? And for this is the first thing. The second thing is, of course, you have to have the resources for that. And this is why I think that the fitness industry structure will shift a lot. Those who are kind of in the middle or small business, this might be a super, super big challenge for them to stay in the market, right? Because they don't have the resources to use these technologies, and tech companies in their turn are not interested in partnering with those because they don't have the reach, right? So the biggest ones will have the good piece of the market, some exclusive gyms which really pay lots of attention to customer attention and to personal relationships with those customers will probably also thrive. But anything between, I really have a big question mark there.
Well, I've got there's two questions, and I'm going to try and stay on this point and not lose.
Let's try. It's difficult because you're asking so many questions, and they're like it's like really trying to sprint through 1,000 kilometers track.
Yeah, so stay on that point then, because you raised up some really good things there. So let's look at some of these connected home fitness businesses, and it will link back together. So there's a number of these coming out now. We started with Peloton and the Mirror, and there was a few sort of big brands. But now if you follow the investment in the fitness and tech space, there's loads of these, from boxing programs to dumbbells,
boxing, exactly.
So many, yeah. And my question was, well, can these really all survive? And the chances are, yes, like everything, there'll be some big players, and then there'll be a lot that are really going to struggle. So I was one of my questions is could there be this sort of, for people who are going in that space, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more yet to come that are not even here, but where the majority of that opportunity is probably taken, and you're never going to want to go after Peloton unless you've got deep pockets.
Well, you can't do that. You can try.
yeah, that's right. But it's probably not a sensible thing to do. But a more sensible thing be to say, okay, well, look, we're not going to get there. We can't raise the same amount of money. But what we have got is the germ of an idea, and maybe a medium to large size fitness chain, which probably hasn't got the interest of someone like a Peloton or an Apple or Amazon or whatever. Could that be a potential model where you're sort of saying, well, look, I'm not going to be number one, but number 2 or 3 could be a great opportunity, and I've got a lot more chance of succeeding, and something like that could kind of form together. What do you think about that?
Short answer is yes. Matthew, definitely. I think we'll also see a new wave of founders in this space, like in this brick and mortar space, who are very tech affine, I would say, right? And who will work with technology or work very closely with the aggregators from the first minute on, right? To make sure that they have the right kind of traffic, the right kind of people joining the gyms. I mean, one of the best examples I can think of as a comparison of this, there's this hotel chain, which is called Citizen M, right? Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
So I once read a case study on them, and a great thing they did was to really understand who they're serving and why. So they said, hey guys, look, we're just going to focus on millennials, right? And we're not going to offer anything on top, which is not necessary for their stay. So the rooms are super small, right? They're kind of standard, but we're going to make this experience a nice one. So there's art on the walls, right? There's a big community area, and they do want you to hang out in this community space, right? They don't want you to hang out in the room. And this is where the whole design is coming from. So I think if someone as a fresh fitness founder, a classical fitness founder, right, has a similar clarity in the vision, who they are serving and what kind of subsector they're addressing, they still have good chances in the market.
Yeah, I think I read that recently actually about what they were doing, and I think that's a really interesting idea. And I suppose the closest thing to that is what the budget gyms have done in some ways, you know, kind of stripping out a lot of the non-essentials. But I suppose if you look at what Citizen M have done, and I've not probably seen it in the fitness industry, is okay, well, how do you take that to the next level?
Yeah.
You know, okay, yeah, you've taken a lot of stuff away. You're using technology to simplify some of those processes, but where could that be next?
But you know what, Matt, you also raised a different point, which I think is super important. You said recently, hey, what's with the data, what's with APIs and data integration, different products, and I believe that this will be the topic which is way more relevant for home fitness companies. Because first of all, they have data in there or tech in their DNA, right? So for them, this is way easier to integrate those things. And come to think of that, most people will only be able to afford one home fitness gadget, if at all, right? Because the price point is like 2-3K per gadget, plus usually a subscription model on top. So that's quite an investment, right? So I think when the market will become more saturated, we'll see some different or some new business models there, like renting models for different kinds of equipment or rotation models, right? Or also API models where equipment can talk to each other, and whether you've trained with a Miro or with a Peloton or with something else like Vitruvian, you will be able to have this data aggregated in one kind of an interface. Because these are different models they're addressing, also different kinds of workouts they're addressing. So why not? I can totally imagine that one.
Yeah. With the SATs thing, that was something that I learned about from you. I think the product's called Mentor. It's pretty interesting actually, and the way that they package it.
That's the one from SATs, which I was talking about, right?
Right. Yeah, and how they've sort of been able to kind of fuse that with memberships, and it's quite clever. I'd recommend people sort of checking it out, but it's very nicely done. The challenge with that, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, is can companies really do both of those well? And I guess you've got to be very well funded to do one of them. And I suppose it's quite a bold move, but there's a lot of ongoing work from a technology perspective to keep the tech relevant, which I guess if you're a tech company, that's in your DNA. Then there's the content that continuously needs to be moved forward. And then I suppose you're operating a regular business at the same time. And I just wondered, do you think really majority of businesses can actually pull that off where you do both, or do you look at what Technogym have done with Virgin and kind of say, well, that could be an interesting way forward? I know that's sort of similar to what we just spoke about.
What they do? I missed that one.
With Technogym, you mean?
Yeah.
So I believe, I don't know whether it's still there, but they have their sort of spin group cycling bike where I believe that they have content powered by, or they did have content powered by OneRebel and Virgin within their screen. So as opposed to them competing against some of their big clients, they've actually got their clients to put content on their device, and so they're sort of switching audiences. You know, they've got a hardware and a software and a customer base that they're sort of growing together, which I thought was quite interesting and probably more manageable than somebody trying to do them both independently.
Yeah, that seems like a smart move. And I mean, this is one of the examples for nice partnerships within the space where of course you still have to ask the question like where does the data go, who gets what kind of share, because it's nice to say, hey, we have a great partnership, but in the end effect, right? That was German, sorry. In the long run, they are all businesses that have to generate revenue, right? I think one of another examples, which is also a recent one, is this content partnership between Fitbit, right, and Les Mills, where the premium Fitbit users get access to, I guess, around 25 Les Mills workouts as content offering. And this is totally relevant for consumer engagement. And I think this is also a good example to understand. Fitbit said, hey, we're not a content company. We want to have content partnerships to drive those ones, to make sure that the consumers are engaged through the content on our platform, which we don't have to produce, right? Other companies might have a different strategy, and there's just, as I said, there's just no all-size-fits-all solution for that. I don't know how they managed that at SATS with the Miro, right? I would suggest that definitely set up a different structure with different kinds of people and different kinds of metrics they have. And if you do this that way, that could succeed. But again, I don't know yet, because for that you just need to understand what the internal setup is for that. And also kind of observe that for a couple of months and probably years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it may be a collaboration in that. It personally, it'd be surprising if that isn't the case. And it does sort of pose the question though, with if you are and I've seen this, and I'll come on to apps in a moment, but where and I'm hopefully not trying to upset any of my industry colleagues, but you do see you do see gyms that it's like, okay, well, we're not doing content, so we'll rent content from another company, and we can't do tech, so we rent tech from another company. And then it's like, well then what are you? What is your value? And I suppose it's trying to navigate that. And as you say, where is the money made? And how can you sort of think broad enough to be able to turn it into a sustainable model? Hence, my earlier question is, the more you sort of get into it, the more confusing it
is confusing. It's totally confusing, and you probably will make a couple of mistakes while trying to kind of get into the tech space as a classical fitness business. But I would say you'd better do something. So just do anything and get started, because you will definitely not be able to win if you just do things the same way you did before.
So apps was another big one. Everyone, I suppose, in the pandemic, everyone needed an app. There's a huge amount of money went into it. I believe the figures that you quoted was in 2021 there were 71,000 new fitness apps. There's a huge amount every year on the App Store, and but I did also read that there was a company, I think you pronounce it Mobilans, but they said last year there was less people downloading apps than ever. And yet,
like apps in general or fitness apps?
Yeah, just apps in general. So if you look at the usage of apps, people are there's few apps that people are using regularly, but in general, there's a lot of being developed, but people are interacting with them a lot less. Despite there being, I think last year, 2.4 billion that went into it. So there seems, I don't know whether you have any insights in this, but there seems to be kind of like, well, everybody thinks they need an app. Less people are using them. There's a huge amount of money going into them. Very few apps that are out there are actually charging for them. The majority are free. So is the app really something that we should be considering, or because it seems as though people feel it is, but what's your experience on
for which purpose would you?
Well, if you have good question. So if you have a traditional fitness business, then should you really be thinking about putting much money into app in terms of your technology strategy based on, because obviously a lot of people are, but the results seem to show that it's probably not really worth you doing that.
I mean, if you mean an app which is serving the purpose of customer relations, right? Then there's a classical decision maker buy, and they will never make such an app. There are offerings on the market which are white label offerings, and that's totally enough, right? As a gym, I will never build an app actually. So I was just asking myself, why should I do that, and what for? Go for white label or partner with existing B2C apps if you want to create more value for your customers, right? And create some membership packages for digital offerings and physical offerings, and that's pretty much it.
Right. So where would a traditional fitness business end? What would be the best use of the app? Would it be just more for membership and providing information, as opposed to trying to create an extension content business of what you're doing?
Oh my God, Matthew, you're asking questions that make me sweat, because I don't know. Like, seriously, it depends on the business. If you have like lots of customers who value nutrition part of fitness, right? Or definitely want to lose weight as one of the main goals, then partnering with a nutrition app like LiveSum, right, might be a good idea. And your customers might get a preferred access or whatever, or like better price for this app if they log in with your discount code. This is like very simple mechanics behind it that might work, right? But if you're a CrossFit gym, I'm not sure that nutrition is like a big part of what your customers are thinking about were thinking about when they sign up for the gym. This is different kind of people, right? And there, I would probably think more about partnering with companies like Carbon Trainer or Vaha, right, who are valuing like functional workout or weight-based workout at home.
Definitely that collaboration there seems to be an interesting thing to be considering, because I guess you mentioned Carbon, but some of these people are, I guess they have the resources, the expertise to really do some amazing stuff, and I suppose it's going to be difficult to compete. So how could you potentially come up with some interesting collaborations that may be fairly unique to you that could put you in a better position?
Look, I was just thinking about the kinds of collaborations that was just announced by MyZone and Hyrex, which is a kind of a fitness competition, which used to be a in-person fitness competition. Now it's a hybrid one, right? And they just announced that Hyrex is going to be the official heart rate monitor partner, where you can monitor the heart rates in real time. That would make sense. That totally makes sense for me, because this is the strategy of engaging the users in a different way, of doing what you can do best, outsourcing the rest. And also that totally aligns with the strategy where you say, well, we'll probably be running the fitness competition in the hybrid way. Part of those will be digital, part of those will be physical, right? And we want our users to have a common ground, right? Common understanding where they stand, independently of if they are on the spot or at home. So this is a meaningful partnership. And this is the way I would think through the business. Like, as I said, just look at what your users are doing regularly in terms of fitness and health, right? Why they signed up for your gym or your business, and how you can create a better experiences. And in some cases, those partnerships are just a great marketing tool for your company. Speaking of Whoop, for example, they have some competitions with the CrossFit Games, where you can get access to athletes' vital data, or with the racing competition NASCAR, where you can track the vitals of the drivers in real time while watching, right? So this is not something which you do as a user to get fitter, but this is kind of an engagement mechanism behind it, that you understand what's happening with the bodies of the people you admire on the one hand, right? And that where you're really starting to pay attention to this product. And probably most of the people who will be watching these competitions will definitely think at least once of getting a Whoop subscription.
Yeah, I think that's interesting when you're able to look at some of the stats and how people that are the top of their game, what they look like in compared to yours. And then probably beyond that, I was looking at some examples of some of the celebrities that were doing, their sleep scores on the Aura Ring from Adele Beckham and the Kardashians and all these. And,
perfect.
And it kind of, it's like, okay, I can see someone who's an elite athlete, for example, and someone who's a celebrity, and how am I doing against them? And now what do I need to do to kind of get to that level? What, my heart rate variability, for example, how can I improve that? So yeah, I think you make there's some interesting points.
Yeah,
there.
exactly. This is something that used to happen on the level of organized sports. Like in soccer, we used to have all these kinds of statistics, and those are getting better and better each time, right? And now this is happening on the level of human body. So this is real fun. And I think the companies that are able to really leverage that data and to kind of demonstrate it in a meaningful, engaging way, they're really going to win the race.
Yeah. With just staying on apps, I'm not going to make you sweat anymore on this, but staying on apps, the aggregator apps, like there's a change happening there through, if you look at ClassPass, for example, they went from selling spots, unused spots, and then evolved into a content business and found they have to pay a huge amount of the money to someone like Apple. I think it's something like 30%. And so you can see that business evolving. Where do you think that space is likely to go? Is it going to evolve? Is it going to become extinct? What are your views, and what are you seeing in that type of the aggregator space?
Well, I'm personally a big fan of Urban Spots Club because I know the leadership and I know the way they approach business. I think that's a very sustainable way to do that, right? And of course, all those companies tried, virtual classes and kinds of all different kinds of engaging their users. I think that I'm not quite sure about the stats. I have like 10% in mind, I think. I'm not sure though, right? That was kind of the average number of users that were still using the virtual offerings after the reopening, right? Okay. But don't catch me by word here. I'm not. Don't quote me on that. Well, you will, I know. So.
It's on camera, so but we accept it.
So definitely, the number was not quite significant, right? But I think this is one of the points where we have to create an additional value for the users, right? And this is definitely a huge support for the businesses that are per se not quite digital, like traditional fitness businesses. And this is definitely a good thing. That the market is overheated, that's definitely the case. But on the other hand, we know that for like younger generations, it's way more simple to stay flexible, and to be able to go to different gyms or different kinds of workouts without any long-term commitment. And so this kind of need is not going anywhere. If at all, it increased because they understood, especially those who were in a long-term contract with a gym, they understood immediately they cannot just get out of there that quickly, right? And of course, from the user perspective, having a subscription from an aggregator like Urban Sports Club is way more convenient than just committing themselves to 1 to 2 years contract at a gym.
Yeah, I'm interested in that retention. Like I know the Peloton numbers are something like 92%, or it was.
I don't know how it, right?
And it's just, what can we learn from that? Is it that retention on those apps at the moment is a lot higher and they're likely to drop over time as more people come in the space? Or is it that they're actually doing something, they've already cracked the code in terms of this community feel where people are like, yeah, okay, I'll stay there. It's an interesting question. Do you think that that the retention on some of those digital products could be higher for different reasons than in physical?
It depends, I think. I guess what Peloton was doing, right? I mean, today you can really order some hardware in China for a couple of €100, right? And it's not a big deal to create some kind of a digital or connected hardware experience. It's just if you just want to do that in any way, right? What's way more difficult is to create the meaningful engagement mechanics and a community that really loves your product. And for that, you just need to make sure that your customer is loving what you do and that you do things that is right for the customer. And of course, that's easier said than done. So I really don't know if we can compare these two different businesses. But when you're speaking of measuring the retention or engagement for physical businesses versus digital businesses. I guess the problem with lots of physical businesses is that they just don't measure anything right now, right? So you just can't compare that.
Yeah, I think you've made a good point. Dr. Paul Bedford, who I've had on, makes this very clear in terms of, look, how are you actually measuring retention really? And there's a number of different ways that you can do that. So I think unless you
the stats that I haven't falsified myself, so yes.
Yeah, I think you've got to start there, and I suppose that's probably a nice way to, as we kind of start to wrap up this conversation, to say, well, a lot of this information or a lot of decisions that I suppose traditional businesses that are not tech businesses have been making is probably based on spreadsheets and really limited data in terms of kind of averages and putting stuff together. and I suppose it's, what you're saying in terms of, I think your statements, tech or die. I think, I probably see it in a way now where you've got to actually kind of make this core to what you do in order to be able to make decisions in terms of, well, do I have an app? Do I collaborate with this person? Where are we making our money? What are our current members doing? What are some of their habits? And then I suppose once you have some of that sophisticated data and maybe some of the AI capabilities, you see your business probably in a different way than before. And I was having a similar conversation just with my brother just before this interview. We've spent a lot of money installing and it's taken us about 3 years, a Microsoft Dynamics program across all parts of our businesses in the different countries. And what we used to think was going on, whether it's from a sales or marketing or business product perspective, and now where we've got the ability to do this crazy stuff with our data, just you look at a totally different business, and so I think unless you move to that way, which is very tough and expensive and difficult and painful, but unless you do that, then I suppose a lot of the questions I've been asking are quite difficult for you to answer because you're standing in sand, I suppose, instead of a strong foundation.
Matthew, I think it depends. I don't really think that you need a big data kind of set to make decisions. I think starting with small data is perfectly okay, right? And it doesn't help you to have big data mechanics and big data software tools if your culture and the way you do business is still old school, right? Mm-hmm. So probably you should start with the culture and with putting the right people in the right positions first, and they will figure out the way to work with data, to work with tech, to work with software tools that are really relevant for your business.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. Yeah, I would totally agree. I think, I suppose I hadn't looked at it that way, but it's very relevant. So before we finish up, I've got a couple of final questions I'd like to ask you. But before that, I think it would be great if you could share where people could find out a little bit more about what you do, your events, any other things that you've got going on that would be worthwhile for people that want to know a little bit more about you and some of the exciting stuff that you're involved in.
Yeah, sure. There are just 2 simple things to do. First one is check out the fittechsummit.com website. And there you will find all the information about what's coming up. You can subscribe to the newsletter and check out the summit or the FitTech Club, for example, right? And the other thing is just find me on LinkedIn. So write me a couple words like that you've listened to this podcast and you want to connect and why. And I think this is just the best way to start the conversation.
Okay. Thank you for that, Natalia.
Thank you, Matt. That was lots of fun. And lots of fun.
I've got, you've done a great job because there was a lot of questions I wasn't even sure you'd know, and I think you've really done a great job at sort of answering many of these on the spot, knowing that a lot of people are going to be listening to what you're saying, you've really helped me get a better understanding of the space and even us as a business help to sort of navigate where we play, because we're a manufacturer entering this arena as well, and what's the future of us as a company.
So what you were thinking of for yourself?
Well, it's as I kind of said, I think that the big thing that we just mentioned is is the value of this data. You know, a lot of people in our company, we've expanded our team of people that have that skill set. We had one person in the business originally, and the rest were totally analog. So we've now got a team. We have spent several years putting in systems to help us to understand the data, because a lot of the decisions we were making, similar to what I explained, were on spreadsheets. So you kind of thought something was happening and it wasn't. Now we've got a better control of that to at least sort of sense check some of the things that you would do as an entrepreneur to have a gut feeling about what you should do, but you can now look at it and say, well, actually, no, it's not quite there. And at the moment, I still think there's a lot of changes going on. We've come off the back of a very unusual few years, and I think hesitant to sort of dive in like all of us are tempted to do is, you've got to get an app, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to create content. When in effect, as you say, a lot of people are going back to the gyms now. So that will return, and so you'll kind of get this pendulum swing, and then there's going to be something in the middle, I think, that will be very different than what it was before. And I think for whether you're a manufacturer or a bricks and mortar business, I think it's trying to find what that new center is, and then trying to find a place where you can look at your core competencies, your DNA, do a good job at that. And then I think what you've said, and also Carl said, is then, how do you collaborate on those areas that you're probably not strong, and try and figure out, which is not easy to do, but how that collaboration can kind of benefit both parties based on kind of where your various strengths and revenue streams are. So yeah, I've not figured it out yet, but conversations like this.
What would be for you the best or the coolest tech thing you're going to do, or you'd love to do?
There's a couple of things we're sort of working on, which I can't say too much, but I suppose if we're predominantly a analog product company, we make dumbbells essentially and other things in that space, and so I suppose one of the challenges that we see, whether it's people in a gym or people at home, is most people don't really understand how that dumbbell or kettlebell or plyometric box links to them getting the specific results they want, which is to become healthier, to be able to motivate themselves to go to the gym on a regular basis like we all do, and to kind of get the results they want. And so it's really trying to see, well, do we collaborate? Do we develop things ourselves? But with the main goal, as you said at the very beginning, what is the customer looking for, and how could we be part of providing that solution in the best way possible? I think that's really the thing that we should spend our time thinking about.
One thing that just comes to my mind is you can definitely make dumbbells less dumb in that you just put some sensors on them. You don't have to do anything yourself. There's, for example, a company which is called Trackbar in Austria that is doing exactly these things. And this is, for me, like one of the examples where you can really collaborate in a meaningful way, right?
Yeah, I think that's definitely it, and I think the good collaborations are really something that us as an industry or this arena that we're in, you've obviously got to find out how to do it. But I think that's really something to spend some time in, and I use Carl a lot, but it doesn't necessarily have to be within the four walls. He was talking about a collaboration between Vera Wang and McDonald's, which is totally strange, very unusual collaboration. So there could be things and businesses and areas way outside of the industry that could make a really interesting collaboration and create a totally new idea that nobody's ever thought of before. So I think it's just having conversations like this and really challenging our thinking, and not necessarily looking at what is there today or has been there in the past. He's trying to sort of re-envision something totally new, maybe.
Look, totally. I think in the long run, it's just about the mental models that you have. And with the wrong mental models, it doesn't matter what kind of tools you have, because they won't work.
Yeah, that's right. And also the diversity in the people part. We've hadn't really touched a lot on people, but I think there's having diverse people from diverse backgrounds, and the more diversity you get, the more of an interesting solution that you could probably find to where you need to go as well.
Absolutely, and that applies to any business.
Yeah. So look, just before we wrap up then, Natalia, one thing is FitTech Summit. What would you say in your personal view was one of your biggest takeaways as it relates to the future from all of the different presentations and people that you spoke to over that? And not necessarily naming names, but was there some sort of general theme that you came away from and thought, I didn't really have that understanding before I came into this?
Well, one of them is things are going to change, but that's quite obvious, right? I think one of the things I really loved was that companies like wearable companies are currently competing for the real estate of human body, right? So we see the competition for the real estate in terms of home fitness, but at the same time, also the competition for the real estate of human body, because obviously you will not be wearing 2 trackers on your hand. And this is where implants and all these cool things are coming into play. And we'll definitely be talking more about that at the next summit.
Excellent. And final question then, Natalia. Escape Your Limits is about escaping what you've believed is possible and gone on to make it impossible. I know you've done some wonderful stuff. You're a very talented young lady, both in business and in sport.
I don't know what
So what would be a memorable example of you escaping your own personal limits, Natalia?
Oh my gosh, I actually do that every day, but in different ways, But I think one of the good examples was that I'm actually Russian, but I moved to Germany 13 years ago. And that was definitely something where I did escape my limits because I think the way I could build the business here and, the people and kind of community I could find here and surround myself with here is quite different from what would have happened otherwise.
Yeah. Well, I have followed you for a long time at a distance, and I
didn't know about that.
I'm not a stalker. I am married, but
that's not a problem.
But no, I really admire what you've done. You've done a great job, and your sort of passion and enthusiasm and the ability to make stuff happen. I certainly take my hat off to you and admire what you've been able to achieve, and I look forward to what you're going to be able to do in future. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you allowing me to sort of bombard you with difficult questions, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Oh, Matt, thank you for your time. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.